Hi, this is John Sarver, and this is the My Solar Story series sponsored by GLREA and the Michigan Solar Users Network. And tonight we have Mark Clevey who's going to tell us his solar story, and including his experiences with solar property taxes. Most of you should be muted. Please stay muted during the presentation, and at the end of the presentation, we have a small enough group. If you'd like to ask a question, just unmute yourself and ask Mark the question. And Mark is the vice chair of the GLREA board. Mark is coordinating our Ann Arbor chapter of Michigan Solar Users Network, has been on the Energy Commission, and he's been involved in this as long as I have, which is a long time. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Mark. Mark, you have the floor.
Very much, John. Well, thank you for coming on, everybody. Hope you're having a great solar day. I'm going to talk a bit, about 15, 20 minutes about my solar, and I actually have two solar stories, so they kind of come together, which is an interesting way. My wife Nancy's not with me right now. I'm in Harbor Springs, so I'll be doing this by myself. But that's my wife Nancy, and that's me. So John said I've been doing this for a long time. I taught my first class in solar in 1975, and I was the GLREA's intervener in the PERPA hearings on behalf of solar. I managed renewable energy for the state. I took John's job when he retired. I took over. And what I'm going to talk about tonight about leading the fight on solar taxation. My house, where solar is a combination of energy efficiency plus solar. It's in Ann Arbor. It was built in 1955, 2 stories with a basement, 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. I think it's about 1,600 square feet. I have a joint certification on my house. It's a joint solar and energy efficiency certification from Pearl. Pearl is a third-party certification of high-performing houses. I put the website on the bottom here. It's primarily used for real estate purposes. If you want to sell your house, there's a green field on the listing, and you can list things like solar and energy efficiency, etc. Pearl certified homes, on average, they sell for 3 to 5% more than like homes without solar and energy efficiency. So the specifications, I have 3.2 kilowatt hour, 12 260 watt poly panels that were Solar World panels. There's 12 of them. There's a SolarEdge inverter. There's DC optimizers in each of the panels. There's a 3.1 kilowatt, 24 volt single phase SolarEdge inverter that's in my garage. They use the Iron Ridge roof racking. I don't have an EV charger on this particular unit, but I designed it so that I could upgrade the inverter to do that. Warranties, there's a 25-year warranty on the optimizers. The solar panels also have a 25-year warranty. The inverter has a 12-year warranty, but it's extendable to 25 years, which I'll do at that time. And then Homeland Solar provides a 2-year warranty on labor and materials. I had, since I put it in 2016, I had one of the optimizers go in the panels. They came out, replaced it, and I haven't had any other problem whatsoever. The energy efficiency part of this, I took a $20,000 loan from Michigan Saves. Amanda Goodwin runs Ecotelligence Homes in Farmington Hills, Michigan. She came out. They did a full-blown blower door test, and they did home installation and caulking and noise stripping and the whole thing. The thing I like about her program is the payback and the monthly payments in collaboration with Michigan Saves. Your annual payments are designed to equal the energy savings, and so far they have done that without question. On the solar PV, I paid cash for that. And it was $2.06 a watt installed. I used Homeland Solar here in Ann Arbor. Dave Friedrichs, many of you know David, with a federal tax credit of $2,760. I got a 15-year payback on my system, and so far it's fairly on track. I'll show you in a minute. There were a couple years where we had a lot of rain. Yeah, last year being one, and the year before. This year is on track to be a stellar performing year. The 6 years I've had it, 4 and soon to be 5 years will be 7 years with this year. 5 of the years it will be high performing years as expected. So it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. This is the total output I've gotten to date. So it's 13.86 megawatt hours. 2016 when it went in, this was for only 6 months. It went in May. So I got 2.38 megawatt hours. 2017, 3.34. 18 and 19, you can see it dropped down a bit. Both of those were weather-wise were not good solar years. 2020, I'm on track. As of the end of July, it was 2.05. I have no doubt that this will probably be, if I don't hit the 2017 mark, I'd be really surprised at the rate that's going. So far, I've saved $2,000 on this, 9,308 kilograms of emissions saved and 162 trees. I have a Solar Edge, which is keeps track of all this, and it's linked to Homeland Solar, so they see the same data that I do. And this same data was the data I used with Pearl for their solar certification in the house. Along came solar taxation. What prompted this me to do this was Wayne Appleyard, who's chair of the Ann Arbor Energy Commission. I'm vice chair, and Wayne was saying that solar taxation was never going to change until somebody took a city to the Michigan Tax Tribunal and fought this out. So I had moved there, and I was planning on doing solar anyway, so I volunteered to do it. And so I put my system in, and as a result, I got a notice of a solar tax increase, property tax increase, which took my solar payback from 15 to 22 years. So we took the city of Ann Arbor to the Michigan Tax Tribunal. We had to go through a local tax review first, called a board review. They rejected our stuff out of hand, even though at the time that we did this, we surveyed only 7 cities in Michigan were taxing solar. Ann Arbor was the most prominent one. The city, these are appointed officials by the city council sitting on the board of review, and their comment was, well, we don't care what other cities do, we're going to tax this stuff. So I said, great, see you in court. And so my attorney, Sam Fields, he's also a owner of Helios Solar LLC in Kalamazoo, does large commercial operations. He agreed to be my attorney, and we took the case city to Michigan Tax Tribunal. They ultimately decided against us. And by doing that, they said that solar is a customary household fixture and therefore subject to taxation. We were going to appeal it to the state Supreme Court, but they told us, if you do this, I'm stunned that they would actually tell us this, but they said, tax tribunal tell us, if you do this, we're going to apply the same taxation to commercial solar. But that had not been subject to taxation at the point. So basically they threatened us and said, if you do that, we'll tax commercial solar and residential solar, and you can say goodbye to your industry. So that left us absolutely no choice whatsoever but to pursue a political solution to this. We did. We got together with GLREA and other organizations and started pushing. We joined with the Michigan Conservative Energy Forum to bring in the conservative Republicans into this fight. And in, excuse me, 2018, the end of the year, we had a unanimous vote to eliminate solar, and Governor Snyder at the last minute vetoed it. So the new governor came into office and started all over again, and in fairly short order, by November, starting in January, by November, she was able to sign it into law. So the new law clarifies that solar is not a part of the property for the purpose of property taxation until the property is sold. And then the property will be assessed based on its true cash value. And if solar makes a contribution to that, then it'll be taxed accordingly. GLREA was good enough to give leadership awards to both myself and Representative Robbie. Representative Robbie introduced the legislation, and he was able to build a bipartisan coalition and good enough to let somebody else put their name on as a sponsor. And so we got it done. And the lesson learned here is you can fight City Hall. So if you are thinking about this and it's not worth it, or there's some other issue that the city is doing, like charging you fees or these kinds of things, you can fight them and you can win. So the next thing I did was when the COVID hit, we decided to get a home, and a second home up in Harbor Springs, where we could get away and hide out from all this madness and live in a wonderful part of the state. So we maintain our home in Ann Arbor, but we have a second home here. I bought a house that was built in 1926. It was originally heated with wood. We have shows here. It's in the middle of a forest, and you can see above it Lake Michigan. It's about 3 miles from my house. We've done energy efficiency and weather stripping and gone through and done all that. If you've ever done that to an old house, you understand some of the issues with the difficulties of doing that. But we're so far so good. And then we had the opportunity to do 100% solar through Harbor Springs Voluntary Green Pricing Program. So Harbor Springs is a municipal utility. The interesting about Harbor Springs is GLREA gave them an award for their voluntary green pricing program last year because they provide full retail. So if you put a solar system on your house, they don't do what DTE Energy and Consumers does and charge you a lower price than they charge you for their power. They don't do that. And they also have this program, their voluntary green pricing program. So if I buy green power from Harbor Springs, it's essentially at the same rate as brown power. Harbor Springs now has formed an agreement with the Petoskey, Charlevoix, and Traverse City, and they are building and installing large solar arrays throughout the region, which they own, and their plan is to provide 100% green power to all the customers within their 4 municipal utilities. So it's getting interesting, and you're lucky enough to live in a town where there's a municipal utility. You've got great examples where this can be done. If not, then you can join with some of the fights we're having. I've written about it in My Son newsletter, and we're part of the policy program now with GLREA, is to use what's happening with the municipals and use that as a great big club to beat up DTE and Consumers. That if they cannot compete in an open market and make money in solar, then they're in the wrong business and they need to stop being subsidized by us. One of the ideas is that we create a new green utility in Michigan, and license a new green regulated utility, which is a renewable energy utility, and make it against the law for Consumers Energy and DTE to compete in renewable energy completely. So they can live with their brown power and they can make money the old-fashioned way. They have to earn it by having a better product, and I can guarantee that people selling renewable energy will have a better product. So it should be interesting to see the utilities have to, do business the old-fashioned way for the first time in their existence. And My Son Rising, My Son is sponsored by GLREA. We have a newsletter that comes out quarterly. John publishes a weekly update on My Son, and GLREA also. Quarterly, we put out a newsletter which is a more in-depth look at certain issues. We looked at the relationship between social justice and solar energy in the last issue. A couple issues ago, we focused in on whether Michigan should do a renewable energy utility. And we're always looking for interesting issues to cover and keep the solar industry moving forward. So if you're not on that list and you'd like to be, you can send me an email or send John an email and we'll get you on that list. PDQ. So with that, I want to thank you for the chance to talk about solar, my favorite subject, and I love talking about this more than anything else. So it's been fun. I hope you enjoyed the stories, and there are questions, I'd be glad to take them.
Yeah, could you stop the screen sharing, and it'd be easier for us to kind of see if people have questions.
Good. All right.
Yeah, Mark, this is Roger Eberhardt. You mentioned the option of upgrading your inverter someday to potentially plug in an EV. Tell me a little more about that.
So the inverter that I have, add-on, I could have had it added into my inverter when I bought it, but neither of the two cars I have now, although I have a Prius, but it's not a rechargeable Prius. So I got one of the last ones that I couldn't recharge. So anyway, I can upgrade the one that I have now. The inverter I have now, I can extend the warranty out 25 years. So I don't want to change it, but they have an option of coming in. It's simply an add-on. It's bolts on and plugs in. So it allows me to take the power that's coming off the solar system. Essentially, it steps between the house and the vehicle and takes that power and pushes it through to as an EV charger. That's all.
Ah,
So
okay.
Hey, Mark, Karen asked the question, what percentage of your power comes from your PV system in Ann Arbor?
It's about 70%. And I downsized it for two reasons. I could have put up another 12 panels. My neighbor has this huge tree that blocks part of my roof. And also, I didn't really want to sell the power back to utilities. I'd rather use it all. And that was one of the reasons why we did the energy efficiency as well. So we lower the amount that we do. So on certain times, it's 100%. January, like everybody else. So the utilities is a nice battery when it works. But I don't think I've gotten a penny back selling anything back.
Other questions?
Full net metering.
Yeah, if you want to ask a question, just unmute.
I've got a quick question about a municipal electric company. They're Bay City Electric. I've worked for a solar company and I've tried to install for a customer there, but it's a buy all sell all program. So they're paying 65 cents a kilowatt and it's a second meter. So how did you change, or how could I start the change for that municipality? How do I get people involved in that? I don't live there, but I think it's absolutely wrong the way they're doing that.
So the model, there's two models. One is you buy a solar system, you finance it yourself, either paying upfront with cash or financing it through Michigan Saves or whatever. And you put the solar system on your house, and then you have a meter, and your meter interacts with Bay City Power and Light. So you're the owner. Some solar companies now are going around and offering the deal that they will effectively rent your roof. So you give them access to your roof. They put the solar system on there. They pay you. You pay for electricity less than you were paying for brown power from the utility. They take and sell the power that you're generating back to the utility. So on balance, they're getting more for your power than you're getting in the discount. And they also, because they're a business, they get to amortize and take ongoing depreciation credits on your solar system. And they also get the solar tax credit, which you wouldn't get, which they sell. So a lot of the people who finance them, I mean, it's a regular old business that they put up money to the solar companies and they get the solar tax credit back. And they they basically sell their financing for solar tax credits and they cash out. So typically those deals, they're a variation of this shared savings. Typically, the shared savings works okay if you can't afford to borrow money or you can't afford to borrow from yourself to put in the solar system. Then you have no choice but to finance it through a third party. They're in the business of making money, and so they're going to your payback. They're going to cash out all their investors within the first after the first 5 years, because investors can cash out then. For tax credit purposes, they can't cash out earlier than that. So as soon as the investors can, they get the tax credit up front, they cash out in 5 years. All of the profit is basically pulled out of the system as early as possible, and the rest of the payments for the remainder of the time is just to pay off interest and things. So it's a great business model. It's not necessarily good for an individual when they look at the other options. So municipal utilities, it really doesn't matter whether it's a municipal or DTE or consumers. You're selling the power to them and they're paying you for the power you generate. That's net metering. It's a question of how much they pay for it. Up here in Harbor Springs, they pay full retail. That's not what happens in Traverse City. It's not what happens in Lansing. It's not what happens in Holland. And I don't think it's what happened in Bay City.
Well, and Mark had mentioned this before, Josh, which is one thing we have going for us now is that Harbor Springs is setting a good example. And so yes, it's kind of like a Michigan example, too, of the right way to do this sort of thing. Since you had kind of mentioned you're not a resident of Bay City, from a political perspective, if somebody was going to pass on that example of how things could or should be done, I would encourage you to basically find somebody who lives in Bay City, anybody who might be willing to kind of take this on, and contact the city administrator, the city council, whoever, and basically say, Harbor Springs is doing this. We think this would be a good program for Bay City. Would like you to kind of consider it. Now, those things are difficult to change, but that's how I would proceed, just as a starting point. And if in the future you get inquiries from anybody in that municipal utility service territory, you could basically send them the Harbor Springs example and say, hey, this would make things much better for you and for me. So that's, those fights are not easy, but.
Roger, understood. All right, thanks, John. Thanks, Mark.
Hey, Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about who has made the rules to stop people from selling electricity to their neighbor. Is that a state level?
That's a state level. Yeah, it's an interesting problem. You can sell power to your adjacent neighbor. So if you put solar on your house, you could sell it to an adjacent neighbor or anybody who's contiguous to your property line. But once you cross over the property line out there, then it's against the law. You can't do that. So one of the things we've been trying to do is look at industrial parks and things like that, where they are contiguous, and it's called a solar microgrid. You could literally find. So you got 10 properties that touch each other. One property could put a huge solar system up, and everybody else could buy into it.
Well, I've registered the domain AnnArborMicrogrid.com.
Outstanding.
I live across the street from St. Thomas Church.
Yes.
I approached them a little bit last summer. I'm a quadriplegic in a wheelchair, so
okay.
Getting out too much. But now I'm better, so I can do a little more work. I told them about Brooklyn Microgrid. I lived in Brooklyn for 10 years.
Absolutely, good for you.
Yeah, and showed them a picture of a Whole Foods in Brooklyn that had a solar canopy over the parking lot. They have besides their rooftop over the school, they have a gigantic parking lot. And then after I heard about the church on Packard and Eastover, how they did it without house of worship putting up any money, I'm starting to try and talk to neighbors here and say let's buy from the church. And when I approached them last summer, I started the conversation with Pope Francis and Laudato Si, and I just got back to Ann Arbor, and I'm just curious which parishioners are paying attention to the encyclical by the Pope.
So do you know Michigan Interfaith Power and Light? Do you know those people?
No, I'm really, I was on city council in 2006, but having been gone between 2009 and 2019, I'm just kind of starting to get around with my partial paralysis.
So this is a group that was formed, well, almost 20 years ago now. John, under his tutelage when he was a manager of energy office, we started this group called the Michigan Interfaith Power and Light, and it's a collection of churches. And they come together and collaborate on energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. So they have a program in Ann Arbor called Solar Faithful. So I'd be happy to introduce you to those people, but the city collaborates with them as well, and city's looking at microgrids. But if you go to www.miipl.org, and just check it out, there's a bunch of churches in Ann Arbor that have already done this.
Yeah, I'll contact you offline to get the.
Okay.
My hands are partially paralyzed, so I'm real slow on the computer.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's great stuff. You're right. Absolutely. We'd love to see a microgrid go up in Ann Arbor. I think that makes a lot of sense.
What it's worth, when we were in New York, my wife and I were developers #1 and 2 for the website that registered 9,000 people and 100 working groups for Occupy Wall Street. So we know how to make trouble.
Geez, you should get on the Energy Commission.
Hey, Mark, this is John Gorley. You made a remark about Chelsea at the beginning of your talk, and I wonder if you could elaborate on that. I live near Chelsea, not in it. I know people who live in the city who've tried to get the local utility, the municipal utility, to do solar, but they haven't had any luck. And I wonder if you can just kind of give whatever background you have.
Well, they're a municipal utility, so you're right about that. So they're one of 42, which means that they have the legal right to generate power and sell it to the citizens inside the city limits. So that's their stuff. They do green power, but they do it by writing a check to DTE for $250,000 a year. So they buy, green power for the city and city usage and stuff like that. But they haven't gotten behind programs to encourage community solar, for example. So Chelsea would be, we looked, when I was working with the state, we went there and did a pretty serious analysis of it. The Purple Rose Theater wanted to put solar on Purple Rose Theater because they have a number of members who have electric vehicles, and they want electrical vehicle charging stations. So because it's a municipal utility, at the time, DTE would give you $2,000 to put in an EV charger. But because they're a municipal utility, they didn't do that, and the city didn't want to write checks for people as well. So the next best thing was to do self-generation and use that for EV charging. So we started with Purple Rose, we expanded out to the city, looking at the city buildings, and what's the Howie's, Howie, the guy, Howie, what's that, Pringle? Homes, Howie Homes.
Howard Holmes, he's Jiffy Plant,
yes. Yeah. Jiffy. So my wife graduated from high school with him. So we looked at them as well, and they're an ideal place for biofuels. But they generate tremendous amount of waste heat and stuff. They would be a place that could generate power for themselves and also sell it to the city. So there's a whole bunch of things that work well there to make it work. What doesn't work is they're lazy. I mean, there's no crisis there. They can just sort of go along. And Nobody's screaming at them. No one's gotten elected to city council who's on solar. We have there's a lot of solar in Chelsea, and a lot of solar systems. And our treasurer, Kerry Church, he's from Chelsea. And
I know Kerry well.
It's ripe for the picking. What it needs is somebody who's got some say, who says, let's do this, because at $250,000 a year, this is crazy. They could do a community solar program that all of us could buy into. There's nothing stopping them from doing a community solar program, and they have room to do it, and they're a municipal utility. They could do solar and they wouldn't have to pay for it. They just have to pick up an ink pen, and stop doing whatever they're doing these days and do this instead. They can make money by selling power to other municipals. There's 42 municipals. Here's a really, this one gets me. There's 42 municipal powers in the state. And then there's the Native Americans. So utilities, DTE and consumers can stop you from selling solar power to somebody, but they can't stop municipals from selling solar power to each other or the tribes. So Chelsea could put up community solar that all of us could pay for, cost them absolutely nothing. They could not use 1 watt of it inside, but they could sell all of it outside to other municipals that aren't in the same position to be able to do this. And right now, there's only about 8 or 9 municipals that are doing solar. And Chelsea could be on the cutting edge of this. And people there know how to do it, as you well know. People there, the talent is there, not the will.
Thanks.
The money's there, not the will. How's that? Is that what you wanted, John?
Any other questions? Terry?
Yeah, just a quick one, and on the same subject. Just for my own curiosity, if Chelsea, I'm just outside of Chelsea,
Okay.
and I know Kerry Church as well. We were co-workers together. But if you're a municipality and can sell to other municipalities,
Yes.
does the municipality that you're going to sell to have to be adjacent to you, or how do you?
No. So municipals and tribes are allowed to do business with each other. So Traverse City, Lansing first started out with their system. They were going to sell power to Grand Rapids, but Grand Rapids said, great idea. If this is such a good idea, we'll do it too. So they did. They're allowed. They have to pay the transmission charges.
Okay.
To what other municipal pays. That's all. They got to pay the transmission.
Okay, so they could use DTE lines or consumer energy lines and just pay the rent.
Right. DTE and consumers don't own their lines. They had to sell those off long time ago under I think it was Granholm, wasn't it, John, when they broke the transmission system off from the from
IT.
Yeah, right. I see. So
ITC. Yeah.
ITC, yes. The utilities cannot stop this.
Okay.
Now that doesn't mean they won't throw, put sand in your gasoline tank.
Whoops.
Yeah. They don't want to make it easy. Yeah.
No.
Okay. Good.
That's
Thank you.
That's what's happening up here. So Traverse City is Harbor Springs, Petoskey, and Charlevoix. They butt up. Their counties butt up with each other. Traverse City doesn't, but Traverse City has the expertise to do this system. They've been doing this longer than anybody else.
Yeah.
So Traverse City basically takes their power and rents the lines to get it from Traverse City into Charlevoix. Once it's in Charlevoix, they just pass it around.
Got it. Great. Thank you, Mark. That answered it. So.
More questions?
Anything else? I'll give you just a couple seconds. I guess we can end early, which is not a bad thing. It's a beautiful night. So, hey, thank you very much, Mark. Really appreciate the discussion. And let's see, we will have a, we are gonna, we skipped a couple weeks. I was on a 2-week trip back east, but we will have presentations during the next, every Thursday during the next weeks. And also we're going to have a virtual solar home tour this year. A lot of you are probably familiar with the solar home tour that's comes every October, first weekend in October. And those of you who are GLREA members will be getting a solicitation in the near future, because basically we're going to have a live virtual solar home tour on Saturday, October 3rd. And we'll have, this is from 10 to 2, we'll have 16 15-minute slots. And so GLREA members, whether businesses or individuals, can kind of get one of those slots and tell their story, to talk about their business, or if they're a homeowner, talk about their system like we've been doing here. And that's coming down the road. There'll be a kind of an email going out to all the GLREA members, and I think that's going to be kind of well, the solar home tour has always been great, because you could go out and look at the house and talk to the owner for as long as you want. We have to be a little more creative these days with the pandemic going on, but that's the plan for this year, October 3rd. And like I said, there'll be emails going out in the near future, basically soliciting participation in that live virtual tour. And we'll basically be having people kind of briefly talk for 10 minutes, show 1 to 5 slides. If they have the interest, they can use their smartphone or whatever and kind of walk around their home and kind of do a virtual walk around and kind of show things off if you'd like. So that's coming. And let's see, I guess I've kind of rambled on. So I guess anybody have any further questions?
John, also my presentation and previous ones are posted on GLREA's website.
The YouTube channel. Right.
YouTube channel.
Yeah, if you go to YouTube and search Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, all the solar stories are posted there now, and other videos too are being posted by GLREA there. So that's available for if you missed any of the sessions, or if you run into somebody who would like to see one of the sessions, just go to YouTube and search for Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association. Hey, thank you everybody for coming tonight. Stay safe, stay well.
Take care.